I want to make an apology for the book I've written in the sense that the first half of the title was mine, and the second half was changed by the editor. I take all responsibility for the phrase, "I love growing older." And older is the point. Because, as I say in the book, old is a destination, but older is a process. And the secret to me of making the most of our longer years is that we would know that there's still more to come and that we're simply growing every day. Now, my second line in the title, when I presented it to the editors, was, "I love growing older, but I don't want to grow old." And they insisted on changing it to, "I won't grow old." That's too audacious. Nobody can say how they're going to feel when they get more aches and pains in their body, more heartbreak in their life perhaps, more disappointments, a feeling they don't know how to cope with some things. I thought it was audacious to make that kind of statement, that I'll never grow old, because who is sufficient for these things, as Paul said in another context. But I believe so much in the idea that we should grow older. We should learn more every day. We should therefore love life more every day. Because we got more of it to love, we have more capacity for loving it because we are growing older. How did I get that way? I'm not sure. I wish I knew who it was that did it for me. I do thank God for some lovely older people, and that I grew up with a lot of older people in that I was a late child in a family. And therefore, when my parents would go visiting, as people used to do on Sunday afternoon, or they'd come into your home for coffee after church on a weeknight, when those folks came in, I was the only child and then teenager in the room, and they pretty well ignored me, which was good, because that was the generation that said, "You're here to be seen and not heard." And so I didn't say much, I just listened. But they were wonderful people. I thank God that I grew up with what probably were pretty average Christians in the 1930s and thereabouts. Simple folk in the world I lived in, but loving God and basically being pretty kind to one another and winning out in the midst of their days. So I'm grateful for that, because it established a great deal of what I came to feel about getting older. Now I'm getting to live on the resources. Some of us, by good fortune, are accumulating enough to take care of ourselves financially as we get older. It's far more important to accumulate enough spiritually and intellectually and emotionally to draw on when you get older. And I thank God for the people who made installments in my retirement that way, if I can call it retirement. I don't think retirement was ever part of my life plan. People in the world of financial planning insisted that it be for some reason or another, and tried to convince me. And the last church that I served for 16 years, a wise man in the congregation of some financial substance talked to the board and said, part of our pastor's salary we should increase for a benefit program, because the ministerial retirement program isn't that good. And I had not had a working spouse, so there weren't other pension programs to go on. So it was going to be Social Security and my denominational pension and anything else that was saved. And so there was a little bit more saved there. And I'm grateful for that financially. But I repeat, being ready to retire financially, people think through, and they can plan it out on paper. And they can say, X number of years will take X number of dollars. Who can say X number of experiences will take X amount of grace, compassion, patience, and courage. And how do you in the world ever store up enough for that? So I didn't have that kind of thinking in mind. But the truth is, if we live the Christian life, even as much as we're able in our poor faltering ways, and I'm one of God's faltering ones, no doubt about that, even so, it's surprising what we learn as we pick it up along the way about what to do with our years and what to think about. Because all the stuff we put in this computer, it's all there. And it's there to pursue us or to redeem us. And for God's sake, therefore, let's invest in the program that will put the right stuff in the computer so when you start pushing the buttons later on, or things start popping on the screen that you didn't push a button for, it'll be the right stuff coming up. So I'm grateful for that, those things that have influenced my life in those ways. Now, it suddenly is occurring to me that, I am in some kind of retirement. I would have told you once I finished my term of leadership in the seminary that I would still be living with the discipline in my life, and have been. And after retiring from that position the seminary had asked me to assume, I then from that point on felt that I had three works to do. One was to teach, and they were allowing me still to teach one course each semester in preaching. That's lovely, and I'm still enjoying it. Secondly, that I would accept outside speaking engagements around the country. And I've been fortunate to do that, and have done a great deal of it. And third, writing. The writing, incidentally, has come into my life primarily since I was in my late 60s. People say, how many books have you written? How many have been published? And all that I've written, I guess, have been published. I don't write just for my own amusement. I write with a kind of mission. But over 50 books, but they've happened since I was in my late 60s primarily. And I have any number now that I'd still like to write. Well, anyway, so I get up in the morning at a certain time, and I go to my desk at a certain time. If it's a day of coming out to the seminary, I come out for the portions of the day to do that. If I'm speaking out of town for a weekend, I do that. I am coming to a place where I know I have to cut back on the traveling around the country preaching. And this is a hard concession to make because, bless you, there's still a boy evangelist in me that feels good to get up there and preach the word. What I dreamed of doing when I saw Billy Sunday when I was a little boy, I said Billy Sunday, not Billy Graham. When I saw Billy Sunday, that's who I was going to be. I was going to be an evangelist. And I haven't lost that fire to go out in that fashion and be in a church for a weekend. But I'm going to have to give that up, at least diminish it markedly. I tell myself that maybe I should cut back on this teaching, but Janet won't let me. She tells me that we need more good preachers, and she tells me I can make a difference in this. God love her for telling me that, because we really do need some more good preaching. And whether I can make that happen or not, I don't know. Though I have some people out there, and I could give you a long list by now, of whom I'm exceedingly proud because they're my students. And I know what they're doing, and I marvel at it. And I'm grateful. So I do want to keep teaching as long as I can. And writing, yes, I want to keep writing. And now my writing has developed a ministry of its own, of another kind. And maybe this is more of my retirement ministry coming along. That I know, no, I shouldn't say that. People all over the country know me, whom I do not know except that they write to me, email me, and say, I've read your book, etc., etc. And I answer them. I'm sometimes slow, but I answer them eventually. And I've discovered that for some of those people, I'm a kind of pastor because they tell me something they're feeling, and I write back to do what I can. And so I am doing some pastoral work now that I could never have dreamed of in the 38 years that I was a parish pastor. I was a fortunate person all the way in that I loved what I was doing. 38 years as a pastor in 4 different parishes. They were great years. I love them. I'll confess to you that many Mondays when I come down to my church office, I would go down the hall to look in the church periodical to see where maybe somebody was looking for another pastor. And it's a good thing I was a Methodist, where you couldn't do a move until your bishop moved you. If I had been a freelancer, as in some denominations, heaven knows how many stupid moves I would have made, because you have your days. And if you say the wrong thing on one of those days, then you've cut off all the ties. But I never got a chance to do that, thanks be to God. And yet I loved it all. I never left a church where they wanted me to go. I'm fortunate. I never left a church that I haven't loved. And I still hear from people from that church that I pastored from 1950 to 1955. The children that were there then write me. So I loved all that. So I didn't wear myself out preaching. I was exhilarated by it. But you do have to learn how to balance that off, for sure.